Hello guys, welcome to my another video tutorial using Laravel and Svelte. On this video guys, I will going to show you how we can use properties on a component, and I will also show you how we can do some logical operation, how we can use it on Svelte with Laravel. First of all, on my previous video, I am using Laravel 5.8, but right now I am using Laravel 6, which is the latest version. And on installing Svelte on Laravel 6, you can still use that video. I just did the same on the previous video on how I install it in Laravel 6. So the first thing I'm going to show you is how we can use a props or a property on our component. So the first thing I'm going to do guys is to remove this styling, because I just want a simple view without CSS and anything else here. And I think this one also, yeah, and I think we're good. I'm going to create a new component and I will name it as maybe user profile that svelte. So okay, and so on this component guys, okay, let's try to print something first here. Let's say user profile, something like that. Okay, and then I'm going to import that component in here. User profile from user profile, that's vel. Then use it just like how we do with this time component on my last video. Yeah, so here it is, the user profile component. So basically what this user profile, so it will just let's say this is this component will print all details for a specific user. Okay, so first let's try to create some variable. We can create some variable here by declaring a new variable. So what would users need? Let's say name, and I will put my sample name here. Then I will print it in here. So name is name. Yeah, so something like that. So on using when we want this variable to act like properties or props, all we need to do is just add some export in here, and when we add this export syntax here, before the declaration of the variable, it will say that this variable is now a property. So let's try to remove this value, and here on passing the value to on passing a property on our component, we're going to add a new attribute here. So we made this props name, so we add a name attribute here, and let's put some value. So let's try Jane Doe for this time, and let's try to refresh. As you can see here, the username is have changed. It is because we put a name here as a properties, and the component is has a name properties. So if you feel weird because this is not how the JavaScript use export, that's what I feel also, but let's stick with it. Maybe, yeah. Anyways, let's try to add another property. Let's say we add email property here, and we print it. So it returns undefined because we didn't pass any email here, email attribute on this component. So let's add a new email attribute as a property, and let's try jane.doe@email.com. Yeah, so that is how we declare and you pass a property in Svelte. So we can also set a default so that it won't display undefined, just like earlier. If we don't set email property on our component, it will print undefined. So to set default value of our property, we just need to set a value here. For example, let's try example at email.com. Then we don't pass property here on our component. So as you can see, the example email is displayed. So if we add again the email attribute here, try kevdev@email.com. So as you can see now, it overrides the default because we pass a value, or we pass a property on our component. Okay guys, so our user profile component will display a specific user data. So let's say I also get a lot of users, so I want to list I want to have a list of all users. So let's try to create a new component for that. Let's call it users.svelte. Okay, so in this component, okay, let's try to print it first. Users. Okay, I will going to get rid of this time component for now, and let's try to remove this also, and let's try to import our new component, just the users from users.svelte. Okay guys, and let me put it already here. Okay, on my user component, users that svelte component, on here, let's say I'm going to require let's say a property, and this property, guys, is an array of user. So let's try to export let users. So on our app.svelte, this is where we load the users, we import the users component. On here, I'm going to create a new variable, users. This is the arrays of users we're going to pass into our users component. So let's say I'm going to what we have there in the user profile, so email and name and email. So I'm going to set some name and John Doe, and then email to johndoe@gmail.com, and yeah, I think, and we copy this for our another user. Let's make Jane and Alex. Let's try Alex. Nope, small only. Oh, sorry. Oh yeah, so I have an error because I forgot a comma. Okay, I think that's it. Yeah, so this user local variable, this is only a local variable. What I mean by local variable is it is only accessible by this component because we didn't export it, something like that. So this is not a, so this user here is just a variable. This is not a properties. So okay, we're going to pass this into our users component. Okay, to pass that, we need again to set a new attribute here. Let's call it user because we set it here as users. Yeah, so users equals users. Okay, let's try to reload if that works. Yeah, so users, it works. So in here, okay, let's check first if that is that we get the correct data from the app.svelte. So I'm going to print here as stringify users. Oops. Yeah, so we get the correct value from our parameter. So this is an object. I just converted into a JSON string by this code. So let's try to delete that. Okay, so what are we going to need to do next is to loop on this user's object so that we can get the iteration. So how I can do that is by using the each function here. If you go to the Svelte tutorial, you will see this. this each block. Okay, so in order to loop through our users variable, we need to use this each block. So each users, then set a new variable per iteration as user. Then we need to close that one. By how we can close is this. To close this block, we need to do this code. Okay, so and yeah, let's assume that we already have the iteration by here. So let's try let's try to print the name of the user. So user.name, something like that. Oops, sorry. Yeah, so we get all the name. Let's see if we have some errors. No, we don't have some errors. So here we display all the name of each data per iteration, because we do this each block, or this is the looping here in svelte. This is how we can loop on svelte. Okay, the next thing I'm going to do is to show you how we can use the if operation. So let's say that we don't have user on our system. So let's say we currently don't have a user, so it will display no product. So in order to do that in svelte, we will going to use the if operation. So in order to do that, it's just something like this. If let's try, so because let's try to remove this attribute here to see some errors. So we got some errors each value, because here on our users component we loop it, but we didn't pass anything. So in order to fix that, we're going to use the if operation. So if user is not equals undefined, then the svelte will loop through all the users, and then else, so we can do else. Oops, so this one, else if we don't pass any user's data or object into our component, it will just display no records found, something like that, and we need to close it by this. So let's try to refresh. So no records has found, because we don't set the properties here. So in order to do that, we need to pass it again, and users, yeah, so we got the users again. Okay guys, then is here we have looped through our users object and display each name. So what we're going to do here is we need to use the user profile component, so that it will display all data for a specific user. Okay, first of all, let's try to add here some ID. So let's say Jando is 1, ID Jane Doe is 2, and Alex Doe is 3. Okay, then here on our user profile, we're going to add another parameters or props. Let's say it is an ID without a default value, so import let ID. So this ID is now accessible here because we make it as a property by adding export before the let code. So on our users.svelte, we're going to import the user profile. So user profile from user profile dot svelte. So as you can see, guys, we have an error because we import user profiles with S. That's why we get an error here on our npm run watch. So let's fix that. So it seems like it's fixed. Okay, on this line we're going to change it, and we use the user profile component. So we have three properties here. So we're going to add 3 attribute. So ID is the first one, and we're going to set as user.id, and for the name is user.name, and for the email is user.email. So let's try to refresh this. So yeah, it seems it works, but it didn't display the ID. So we're going to edit our user profile component when we remove this. Yeah, I think we just changed this to maybe h4, and user ID, let's try a number ID, and let's try to refresh. Yeah, so it looks better now. And let's try to how about let's try to add some style here. So some simple CSS, so we can add a simple like border here. By doing that, we just going to add the style tag here. So this is a component base, it will not affect other. So let's say you have some let's say we change the font here for the p tag. Let's try font color red, and here we have yeah, let's try to add some p here, p paragraph tag here, and list of users, to see if it will also become color red. We don't get any error. I wonder why it's not working. think the font color is not working. Sorry guys, I'm not a CSS guy. So yeah, I think this is not working because when I change the font weight into bold, it works, and the other paragraph element from the other component didn't change to bold. So I think it works. Okay, so let's yeah, anyways, I'm going to in here, okay, in here I'm going to let's say we use h5 here. Okay, in here I'm going to put this on a div, and maybe div dot user profile wrapper or box, let's say box. Okay, and put all the HTML code in here. Yeah, so on our CSS, div dot user profile box, I'm going to add some border to 3px, solid and blue. Okay, so we have a border now, and let's add some padding with 5px and margin with 5px. Yeah, so I think it's look better. Okay, so we have used the user profile component to display all the users information, but for me I think it's looks complicated when we put it one by one. So svelte also have some cool features on passing properties on our components. So it called the spread props. So spread is a JavaScript feature. It means that it will iterate an array or object into a string with delimiter of comma. So it is used to, yeah, basically it is used to pass arguments in a function. So on svelte, it is used to spread or iterate an array or object into properties or attributes. So as you can see here, just like what we did on our component, the example shows that it is passing one by one. So we can simplify it by using spread in svelte. So let's see here in the example. So this is the syntax of spread, this triple dot here, and indicating the variable that is an array or an object. So yeah, let's try it on our side. So instead of passing it one by one, since we also have the same keys on our object, we have ID, name, and email. On our component properties, we also have ID, name, and email. Instead of using this, we're going to spread it, this user iteration. Okay, So in order to do that, I'm going to delete it and 123 user, and let's go check it. Yeah, so it's still the same. Yeah. Yeah. What else? So yeah, I think this kid each block. So here, if you want to add some keys on each iteration, you just add some user.id as a key. Let's see if it is working. Yeah, it's working. Okay guys, to explain this kid each block featured in svelte, I think the first time I encountered this kind of feature is on AngularJS. I think it was 4 years ago. Yeah, so to explain it in a detailed, let's have a look. But I think it is a different syntax. So on AngularJS, the version 1, they use the track by item, same as the I think they have the same purpose, but of course they have the different syntax. So to explain it, this is the goal why that exists. So when an item is added, a new instance of the template is added to the DOM. Excuse me. Its template instance is removed from the DOM. So basically, it just track each iteration for duplicates. So whenever a new object is available, it will check first if a key already existed. So if it is already existed, it will not touch that iteration. It just add all the new object that is not existed on that each block. And then, so just like also in the remove, it just remove the specific iteration you want to remove. Okay, so yeah, so I think to better understand it, I will provide this link, because this is the first time when I encountered, this is the framework when I encountered it for the first time, and I really think they want to serve a same purpose. So yeah, I will provide this link for you guys. Yeah, so yeah, let's move on to the next part. Okay, so what else? Yeah, I think let's proceed here on the await blocks. So this await blocks is for synchronous. This is for So this await blocks is for synchronous data. So if your data is from an API and you are if you are fetching it from API and you want it to run asynchronously, so this is the way how you do it on Svelte. So okay, first of all, we're going to convert our users data into an API. So let's head on to Laravel to create an API. Okay, first, currently I don't have any, I didn't run any migration, so I'm going to duplicate this stop and check if there's migration. Sun migrate status. ANV, so the database is laravel, so I'm going to create a new database. Yeah, because it is not set. So laragon open, and I'm going to create a new one. Create new database, and I'll call it laravel 6 svelte. Oh, it exists. It exists, but on my configuration. Okay, I'm just gonna change this. Okay, and so no migration found. Let's see the seed. I'm going to check first the table. Yeah, so name and email and ID. Yeah, I think it's good. Let's run the migration. HP artisan migrate, and then we need a sample users. So in order to create a new sample users, because by default there is already a factory for user, so we just need to use this factory. And yeah, let's do that. To do that, we need to use the artisan tinker command. Okay, so factory app user class, let's say I need 25, and create. So we already have 25 users available. Okay, so the next thing we need to do is to create an API for that user. So let's head on the routes and the API. So for this tutorial, I will not include the validation or authorization of the API. I just return it. Okay, so my URL will be users, so API users, then actually we don't need it, function, and this will just return response JSON, and users is app users all. So let's try if our API works. To do that, we need to go to API and users. So yes, this is our users that is created from the seeders, and yeah, so our API is ready now. Okay, let's head back to our svelte components. So here, users, then okay, let's try to create a new components. Okay, create new file, and we'll call it as async users. Is that with S? Users that felt okay. That's svelte. Okay, so in here, I think I'm just going to copy this one and let's just change something. So right now our user is from the API, so we don't need to pass any properties right now. So going to remove the properties and maybe set it to null as a initial value for the users. Okay, and then we need to create a function. All you need to do is to type function, then the function name. I will set it as fetch user, yeah, that one. And then okay, so we're going to, in this function guys, we're going to fetch an API from the API that we created earlier. So I'm going to set this function as a asynchronous function. To do that, I just append the async here before the function syntax. So this will indicate that our function is an asynchronous function. Okay, on inside the function I will create a res variable. Res is in short for response, and I will this response is from the fetch API. This is a JavaScript fetch API, just like an Ajax. I will fetch the API that we created earlier, so that is this one. So I will put this API, this URL on this fetch function as a parameter. So the URL will be API users. Okay, so this API will return a promise. Promise is also JavaScript features, so I need to await this. I need to await this, so because this fetch API is returning a promise, and then once the request is already done, I will return the data, the rest. But right now this is a promise. I will convert this into a JSON format. To do that, I just add that JSON function from the it is from the fetch also, and this JSON function will return also a promise, so I need to await this also. So yeah, right now we already have a working asynchronous function that fetch the user. So we need to call this somewhere. On here we were going to call the svelte await block. I think we going to change here on this if, because we don't need this anymore. So maybe let's try to comment this out for now. Okay, what we're going to do next is to use the await block from svelte. So this await block will wait a asynchronous function to process. So I will wait this function. This is our asynchronous function. Okay, so what does this do is will asynchronous wait this fetch function. So while this fetch function is still in the process, or it is still requesting to the server API, what I will do here is I will print some message. So let's say waiting here. This message will print if this fetch function has not yet done fetching the API. So okay, and the next thing to do is what will happen if the fetch user function has done on fetching the API. So we will using this wait, this then block. It is incorporated with this await block. So what this do is when because here on this line 7 we return a promise which is the result, and it's converted into JSON. I mentioned earlier that that JSON function here is returning a promise. So basically what will happen here in this code block will catch this response JSON, and then we set it into a variable, let's say data. And here let's print it for now to see if it is working. Since this is a JSON, let's try printing it as a stringify. So JSON dot stringify function data. Then to end our await block, we can use what we need to do is to end it here just like that. But there is also one thing I want to add here. What if the JSON API I mean what if the API fail or there's some error from fetching it, and it will not return the expected response, or it will return with the status code error. Okay, I will use the catch block here, and I will set a variable for error. So this will be the response data if the API is on errors, and I will print something here, maybe error dot message. Okay, so yeah, I think this will do for now. Let's see. But I think we're missing something here. Yeah, because on our app.svelte we still use the user function, user component. So I'm going to comment this out, and then in here I will import the async user component from the async user.svelte. Then I'm going to can async users. Okay, async users, and then here I'm going to use it async user. Since our async user component don't have any properties, we can do it something like this. So async users, I'm sorry. Yeah, so let's go and refresh this one. Yeah, so as you can see, before the at the first load, you see the waiting text. Let's try to page we sleep. Let's try to sleep our API for a few seconds so that we can see that it is waiting. Yeah, so on our API, where's that API? Okay, I'm going to sleep this API for 3 seconds. Okay, so let's try to refresh again. Yeah, so this is as you can see there, it means that the API has not been finished loading or fetching. So here, this is the data that we pass here on the den code block, and we just pass it as a JSON. Because this is a JSON, we convert it to stringify. For this is for testing only. So then what if we fail our API? So let's try to fail this one. So instead of returning this, I will try to, this is for testing also, response. I think there's something response 500, something like that. I'm not sure. Oops, I forgot. Okay, laravel response JSON status code. I forgot how to return. I think something like response JSON, and let's try this one. Messages, something went wrong, then 500. Let's try this. Yeah, so as you can see, so we don't need the message, we just pass the string, and this will act as the message. Since we set it to 500 and the HTTP error code value of this 500 is critical error. So we'll remove this for now, because I just do it for the demonstration of the catch. This one, the catch code block from the svelte await. Let's remove this now. Okay, so for now, okay. Okay, 1, 2, 3, go. So okay, next thing we're going to do is to loop the users from the API. So as you can see here, the data has this user key, and this user key is an array, as you can see here. So let's check the actual request from the logs. So as you can see here, this is our API and the response. So there is a key of users that has an array of all the users, this one. So what we're going to do here, we're going to loop through that users from the data, from this data, and that users is actual is an array of user. So yes, let's do this here. And so we already know how to loop in svelte. So each data dot users as user, then we going to put the key here and user dot id, because we have this id. And let's close it by this way. Then right now we're going to print the name only to check if it works. Name. yeah, so we don't get any error. Yeah, so I think it's worked, because at here it display all the name from the list of users. So okay, um, uh, from this code we're going to use this user profile component that we we do earlier without the asynchronous function. This is the previous code from the user component we done earlier. So what I'm going to do is to put this user profile, this one. So the user profile accepts multiple props or properties. So I'm going to spread this user data in here. Okay, and user, let's see if this works. Yeah, so I think it works, guys. So we got 25 and our API get the ID of 25. Yeah, so that is how the the await code block works on Svelte. So yeah, so I think I already show you some key features that is required, that is very important on this belt. So yeah, I think in the next video I'm going to feature also this event the event function or event dispatcher, and this bindings. I think this is also important, but for now I think I am ready to create my next video. My plan is to create a series on creating a CRUD with laravel spelled. So that will be a series. I will include there authorization, authentication, and maybe the eloquent resources also. I will feature there basic on creating a CRUD app using Svelte and APIs on Laravel. So guys, I hope you enjoy on my video, on watching my video, and sorry if I'm not really good on explaining stuff, but I think I have tried my best to explain it. And don't worry, I will put the link on the video description on the key feature that I mentioned. Okay, so thank you guys for watching, and if you like to watch my next video, please subscribe on my channel. And if you like this video, and please like, and thank you. Bye bye.